Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Henrik86, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Chris Hillman, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Missouri Bear, Liam Nedrick, Dank, Erwin Jellisons, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Felix Hung, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Tina Baker, Alexander Main and David Wayne Foster. So a massive shout out of thanks to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'm going to raise the mic on the Discord live stream so you can enjoy the dulcet tones of whoever is in there while I set up for today's live show.
Okay.
That means they're not muted.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
So they just got to come off themselves.
Yeah, and then when you go,
Yes.
oh,
Morning, Nathan.
yeah. There's Nathan. Yeah, hey, morning, Nathan.
Morning.
Nathan.
I'll be right back. I'm just going to make myself a coffee.
Morning, Nathan.
This morning I was I was listening, or I fell asleep listening to something last night. Woke up and I was in some fucking Glober space stream. It was pretty funny, and I was just in there talking smack about gas pressure without a container. And
Meanwhile, it can't be demonstrated anywhere.
yeah, that's pretty funny, man. And they're like, "Oh, gravity," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, well." You know, gravity's not a force, right?
Yeah, but even
But
that
it's what it
gravity,
is.
give it to them. Give it to them, both of them. They still can't stop entropy. You can't stop it. You
Yeah,
need
that's
a
literally
container.
what I said too.
The thing is, they're still looking up and saying, look, we have gas pressure. They're not getting it.
Yeah, I said that the sky's not a vacuum. I told him to go to Quantum Eraser channel and check out Flat Earth Debate. I tried to put globeterminator.com into the chat and they canceled it.
Listen, my cousin's a school teacher, and like I said, she came back with, you don't understand. Flat Earth has nothing. Everything that the heliocentric model have has been peer reviewed. Okay? Jeez.
From Earth, right? Peer reviewed from Earth.
Peer reviewed. Oh my gosh. You're
Hey, Flat
coming
Stories.
against thousands of years of science. That's what I get.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, it's a riot. These people, they don't even know how fooled they are. It's scary when you talk to a normie. It's like you have to it's difficult to know like where to start, you know. It's like
The
what's his
solar
name?
system. What the hell does that mean anyway?
What I miss? What the hell does what mean?
Solar system.
Solar system?
Yeah, I had my cousin telling me, she's a school teacher, that everything has been peer reviewed and you're coming against hundreds of thousands of years of scientific proof. I'm like, okay, so take it through the housekeeping and get nowhere.
Well, 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 I've got a test I'm going to be doing soon. It's got to do with Earth's spin.
Okay, fill us in.
Tell us more.
Well, I'm planning on taking I was going to use a drone in the beginning, but the battery life's not going to last long enough. So I'm going to use a balloon with helium, and it's going to float on one spot in line with the sun's path. I'm going to have a camera in line with the balloon and the sun. Then if the balloon's not moving with the sun's path, then it shows it's the sun moving, not the Earth.
That sounds good.
Fair enough.
Because it's not controlled flight, is it?
Well, it's they have a claim that there's a 15 degrees drift that you'll observe in that helium balloon. That's their assertion, and you'll be debunking it when you show it's not there.
Yeah. So I'm just going to do a test just to show them it's not the reality. Reality is the sun moves and not the Earth.
Right. What you should observe from the ground is that helium balloon drifting away from you at 15 degrees an hour, like the sun, right? And it should track with the sun because it's drifting away from you in line with the sun. And the sun, relatively, is stationary. But the thing that's causing it, according to the heliocentric rhetoric, is you moving on a sphere Earth. It's what's causing you to see the sun appear to move. Well, that would give you Coriolis drift. That's the claim of Coriolis. So you need to see 15 degrees an hour drift from your helium balloon. And you won't. Nothing's drifting. The Earth's not rotating underneath anything.
Exactly.
Cool. Can't wait to see it.
It's just nice to know we can do it's just nice to know we can do demonstrations to prove our points.
What debunk their claims more specifically is, it's not a point we're making, you're debunking their claim that there's a 15 degrees an hour drift by showing there isn't one. Fairly straightforward. Can't have it both ways, globeheads. Can't claim there's a 15 degrees an hour deviation proving Earth spins, and then when someone goes to try and show that it's there, that would be Coriolis deviation. It isn't.
I re-listened to that Fight the Flat Earth show. What a poor showing.
I thought it was fairly standard. Begging the question's all they have, Neil, so I don't know if you had higher expectations of him, or why you'd have higher expectations. That's part of the course, isn't it?
No, I mean for his viewers, and he kept bragging that his people are watching it, and I was like, wow, if I was part of his team, I would quickly unsubscribe. He didn't want that last question asked with the scientific hypothesis of any of the three fields. He did not want that asked. He kept interrupting that.
Hey, 10th.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hope all you had a good weekend.
Who are you asking?
Everyone, you and Neil. That's the only two I heard.
Yeah, I've had an interesting weekend. Well, I've had an interesting morning. I had a neighbour crying for help, and my wife pointed it out, and I'm like, oh, really? So I ran over, and so did the neighbour from the roadside who ran across, and so did the gardener. Not that that sounds posh, I live in an apartment complex, so I don't have my own gardener. It's just a complex gardener. Anyway, we're all over there, and we're like, what's the problem? And she's had a wardrobe malfunction. She's very elderly, this lady, Jean, her name is. And what happened is she's made her way onto a balcony, and then her skirt's fallen down. Because she's very elderly and frail, she's lost a huge amount of weight. only about 3 years ago, she was toddling around quite happily chatting to us and the kids and stuff. Now she's definitely not. But she's lost a load of weight, which means that at least she's sensible enough to get to her balcony, have her skirt fall down, and realise that if she doesn't call for help in the limited space that she got, if she tries to pull it up, she'll probably collapse. And if she tries to move into more space, she'll probably collapse because it's around her ankles. So she's called us over. So we calm her down because she was very scared, and get her back inside, or called somebody. The gardener called her care worker, because I went in and got the paperwork. I had to literally climb over the balcony to get into her property. I'm like, you sure you're okay with me coming in? She's like more concerned about other things. So I went in, got this paperwork. We phoned her brother-in-law, who comes down very dutifully 10 minutes later. And then we go about our day. About 20 minutes later, it's about half an hour ago or so, we hear her screaming again for help. So we go back down. She's back on the balcony. And she's wised up to the fact that her skirt's going to fall down, but now she's realised that she can't actually get back in with only one hand holding her skirt up. So I'm like, no worries, stay here, and I'll go and get my wife and some safety pins. So I got my wife, we strapped all the kids into like buggies and stuff so they wouldn't run off. And then I was like, I'll hold your skirt, my wife will pin it with a safety pin, and then you can freely come in and out of your balcony without a wardrobe malfunction, bless her.
Oh my gosh, great story. That's lovely.
I feel really bad for her because she's in the advanced stages of Alzheimer's, so she's probably got about a 3-minute memory. So obviously by the time I'm down there, she's very scared, but she can't really remember why she's out there in the first place. So by the time I've got her calmed down and got her skirt back on the first time, she then still can't remember why she's even outside. So it's one of those.
That's amazing.
One of those things you don't think about, though, when you're in the last stages of your life, that if you're weak and frail, you'll lose so much weight that suddenly even your clothes become an issue.
Yeah. Among all the other new trials you have to go through being old.
I had to give her props, though. I was like, you did the right thing. Based on what I can see here, I didn't say this to her, but based on what I could assess, she had 3 options. One was call for help. The other was try and pull a skirt up in a very confined space on this balcony. I was like, no, that would have ended badly. Or try and shuffle her way back in with the skirt around her knees, or around her ankles, rather. I was like, none of those are good options other than calling somebody to come and help you.
Yeah, well, she had enough sense to do that. She may have forgotten it 3 minutes later, but she did it right.
Yeah. But you can see it in her eyes. You can tell when someone's absolutely petrified. And she's just worried that she's going to fall over. That's all she kept saying. I'm just worried that I'm going to fall over. I'm like, I don't blame you. Based on the fact that your wrist is about the size of 2 of my fingers, you'd probably snap when you fall. So you don't want to fall. Very wise. Call us over. It's very sensible.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been an eventful day, or an eventful morning for me.
Well, good morning to that eventful morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Paul.
Cleared out the garage. Suddenly, because of all the things that have recently broken, it's overrun with boxes and broken things. So we sorted that out. Or my wife and I sorted that out. More her than me, I'll be honest. Yeah, exciting stuff at the Oakley residence, you can tell.
No, I was trying to see the connection to that and what Paul said. I can't figure it out.
My shower broke. I'm not sure if I mentioned that.
No.
Yeah, another thing to go pop. It was on its last legs anyway. You had to press buttons in a certain sequence to get it turned on. So it was kind of dying anyway. But that finally died, and you're like, oh my god, how many more things are going to break?
Entropy.
Oh, do you own Nathan, or do you rent?
I own
or rent?
No, I own it. Well, my wife and I own it, I should say.
Well, I also say it's good. At least if you rent or renting and all this broke, I would be mad, and you had to pay for it, I'd be mad. But if you own, I understand that's good.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. Just got to replace it all at great expense.
Come on, Paul. Haven't you heard? Nathan's making it hand over fist. Got money rolling in from this flat Earth debate.
It does actually pay me a living. I'm not like rich as a result of flat Earth debate, but it does pay. It pays my way. I mean, it is my job at the end of the day. I've elected to do this voluntarily.
And I'm
I
glad
think-
you did, and you should get paid.
I think some of the funniest comments you ever make is when they accuse you of money and you say something and then afterwards
Smash
you
the
say,
super chat.
smash the super chat. I'm rolling all the time when you do it.
It's hard to illustrate it. You mentioned about the flat Earth debate, but that typified a more realistic as opposed to when I'm joking. Although I'm not joking. Do smash the super chat. But yeah, when the Flat Earth said, well, how many people have you got watching? Now, to be fair, I do have one of the screens on my stream deck that does tell me how many people are watching at any given time. It's just not the typical screen I have, like, ready to be pressed. You know, transitions and various other things are on that particular screen, start and stop, in case something goes drastically wrong. You know, end the stream now button, that's on that screen. That's what I keep at the front, not my viewing figures. So when he asked, well, how many people have you got watching? I didn't know. And I didn't care. Now, by I didn't care, I mean I didn't care in that moment. I do care. I do want people to smash the super chat. I do want them to subscribe. And I say it at the appropriate time. But when I'm in the middle of a discussion about the nature of reality with a fundamentalist religious zealot with a gravity belief, do I care how many people are watching at that particular moment? Absolutely not. My priority is the show, because the show's happening. Now, a consequence of the show is how many people are watching and how much I'll earn from it. But the show, when the show's running, obviously has to be priority number one for me. Now, for other people, it's not. They're more interested in the fame and the fortune. Fortune. Yeah, the money that comes in. But you know what I mean? That's their first priority, and it shows. You know, my passion, you can't fake passion for a subject. You know, if you're not passionate about a subject, it's the same if you're selling something. When I was selling crap, polished dog turds, you know, you can't cover that up. People who are savvy will recognise that you know yourself what you're selling is a polished dog turd. Whereas if you're really keen on something, so I've worked for a few manufacturers where I own their products and I've gone out of my way to probably work for them so I can buy them cheap. In other words, I really want their products, right, as a customer, which means it's much easier to convey that to somebody. And it's the same with the discussion. If I wasn't passionate about this subject, people would tune out because they'd be like, oh, it's boring. He's not got any spark about the subject. But if I spent the whole time going, you know, every 5 minutes going, smash the super chat, be sure to hit my GoFundMe during the show, or, oh, there's 200 people watching now. You know, when it was really high prior to COVID, it was noteworthy. In other words, at those points, when suddenly you've got a huge number of people watching and it just seems like, wow, you've got 300 people plus watching, that's noteworthy, but only because it's out of the ordinary. In other words, my first priority isn't how many people are watching. Before the show, when I'm sharing it and encouraging people in the chat to share it, that's the appropriate time. Whereas, to get to my point, it seems to me that a lot of the people on the other side have recognised a niche that's opened up. So originally, that niche was, for me, I'm not going to lie, was Flat Earth. I'm like, wow, I've recognised the Earth is flat. I'm looking for a subject to cover on YouTube. I want to be a YouTuber. Ideal, absolutely wonderful. Perfect. But it's a niche that I've recognised. There's not very many people in it. Now, that door to that niche is well and truly slammed shut several years ago. But then a new niche has opened. And what is that new niche? Anti-Flat Earth. That's the promoted niche. So you can get into that subject and actually do quite well. You know, if I was only here for the money, believe me, I'd just do what Jose did. More power to... In that respect, Jose's far more savvy than I. Just jump ship. Just go back onto the globe. That's the worldview rhetoric, right? So where are you going to get more support from? Obviously from that side of the argument. So therefore, to be on this side of the argument and be accused of shillery or just for the money or whatever, it's like, no. Anybody with half a brain who was just here for the money would jump ship.
Yeah,
And
for
you'd be
sure. But he said that when he said how many people are watching, just to divert, because he didn't want to talk about what you were talking about. So he was just scrambling.
Yeah, but what you're going to scramble to is my point. You are right. Yeah, it's a distraction technique. You know, he's saying, I'm on another call, which means he's hosting his show and talking to his audience. But that says it all. His priority is talking to his audience, assessing how many people are watching, how well is this going down with my fans, as opposed to how well am I doing in the argument.
Well, one of the things I've done, you've done, many have done, is turn off the boob tube, right? We don't watch state-run media, basically, because they're lying. And that's the reason we turned them off, because they are lying on so many fronts, right? So now, how many people are watching state-run TV? Oh, millions. Well, does that make it right?
Well, according to, was it Neil that brought it up earlier? Was it you, Neil, that was saying you were speaking to a teacher earlier?
Yeah, my cousin's a school teacher.
Right. Well, consensus rules according to her, correct?
Yep. That's
There
correct.
you go, Neil. There you go, Tenth. There's your answer.
Science.
Yeah, that's right. Consensus rules, because they're part of that consensus. That's a bunch of sheep.
It was funny. Yes, I think it was Friday. I was on Discord talking to Gold Steel, and we were talking about intelligence and information in the DNA and what it takes to build molecules and all this stuff. And then I sent him a link of a guy that's a chemistry guy. That's what he does for a living. He builds molecular molecules, from base components up. And I said how the problem with it, or the problem that they run into when it comes to abiogenesis kind of things. And Jesse wants to talk, but when I sent him a link for that guy, it's funny, so funny. The first words out of his mouth, "Oh, this guy wants to sell a book." I'm going like, okay, so you've already poisoned the well before you even saw the information. And then I heard him in the background typing, and then he pulled up a article that someone else wrote about the same guy. And so right off the bat, before he even looked at the information, he poisoned the well, and he used the money. He's trying to make money because he's trying to sell a book. And then because he didn't fall in a specific field, he just pretty much dismissed the information right out of hand. So I thought it was funny. The first thing he wrote up was money.
What's that you say? This man needs to earn a living? Outrageous. Let's discredit him immediately.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Brian.
On that same note, I had a 2-hour conversation with Rumpus yesterday on Skype to deal with this thing he's doing, this Bedford levels thing. And there's some stuff I want to share during the show, Nathan, if that's okay, just for maybe 5 or 6 minutes, if that suits you.
By all means. By all means.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of choices depending on the level of importance you assign to it. If it's seriously important, we'll do it before housekeeping. If it's really seriously important, we might even forgo housekeeping altogether. If it's not that serious, we'll do it after housekeeping. It's up to you, though. You tell me.
Oh no, just after housekeeping. It's not that serious. It's just to deal with the conversation I had with Rumpus. That's all.
Yeah, sure.
But what the reason I bring it up there, I was going to ask you about it anyway. But the reason I bring it up here because of what Paul said. My opening statement to Rumpus yesterday was concerning the original Bedford levels thing, and as soon as I mentioned what's the guy, he's gone out of my mind. All day he's gone out of my mind. The guy who did it, the flat earth guy, Samuel Rowbotham. As soon as I mentioned Samuel Rowbotham, and he mentioned it, as soon as I mentioned it was just me and Rumpus on the call. It wasn't being recorded or anything that I'm aware of. And as soon as I mentioned Samuel Rowbotham, he straight away called him a con man and a liar and this and that and everything. It's like he had to straight away poison the well, even though there was nobody there to hear it.
No, he was there.
You know what I mean?
Hold on. No. Yeah. He was there, though, wasn't he?
He was there, yeah.
Yeah. So he heard it.
Yeah. Yeah, he had to poison it for himself.
Yeah.
But that's a bad thing.
Do you remember Tommy coming on? And I could have kissed the guy. Right? He was like, this is my fault. More fool me. I was dumb. I didn't look into it. And you're like, immediately you're off onto the best footing you could possibly be. Recognise your own ignorance in this regard, where the rhetoric points out where it's doublespeak and allows you to understand the geographical considerations and the reifications. They're all laid down for you in black and white, right? Therefore, your fault. Well, if it's your fault and you recognise that it's your fault, there's got to be the person that hasn't yet recognised that. And what are they going to be doing? Well, they're doing what you've just described. They're brainwashing themselves. It's their own fault, basically. And they're in cognitive pain as a result. Every time this comes up, I have to plug it, right? Haunted House did an interview with Conspiracy Cats, and he projects this out in a hypothetical, right? But nevertheless, he's detailing the stress and pain of realising the massive lies that we live amongst, right? I shouldn't laugh, but it's funny because they're like, I'm long past that, right? I'm sure everybody here's experienced that. Oh my God, are they going to come and get me because I'm pointing out that they're liars? Well, no, they're not going to come and get you. You've just recognised it, but now you're in the majority. You're in the minority, right? Now you've got to face up against every tard that you used to be before you recognise this, telling yourself that it's, well, whatever example you like the one you just gave. You know, right, Rowbotham. Oh, he's a complete charlatan. Oh, right, okay. What about the angular size reduction that wasn't considered? Just forget that bit. That's not important, right? Because I need to poison the well for this guy so I don't have to listen to anything you've got to say about what he's done. That's basically it. Well, that's just self-brainwashing.
Yeah, I'm really. Hey, Brian.
Go on, Ted. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I think this is. I can't remember how Nathan said it. If it's really, really serious or important, you got to do it before the housekeeping. Because this is the first time I ever heard anyone have a conversation with Rumpus.
This is headline news.
The reason I even contacted him was to say, look, if you're going to do this Bedford levels thing, because when I first heard of it, I know you're about to start, so I'll make it short. When I first heard of it was on Jose's, and I asked Jose to ask him a question. What will happen if he finds the Earth to be flat, right? If he finds it flat, and he said, well, if I have to tilt down my telescope lens or camera lens, whatever, or if I don't have to, in his head, if he didn't have to tilt down his camera lens, then that means that it's flat. But if he does, it means it's a globe. So straight away, he's begging the question. So I rang him to say to him, look, you have to take you have to take certain things. I'll go into them later. You probably already know what they are, into account. This is a real thing. These are real effects of perspective. If you don't take them into account, all the effort you're putting into this, which is a huge amount of effort, is going to be wasted. Because me and other people can show this thing, and the whole of flat Earth is just going to hand wave away what you did. And that was my point of having the conversation with him, you know. But the first thing I mentioned was Samuel Rowbotham, because he ran into a similar problem with Wallace. And ironically, the first thing he told me when I said, this is how Samuel Rowbotham won that bet, he said he didn't win the bet. And he actually has a different story to the bet than I always heard. And this is before I was ever a flat earther. I heard that he had won that bet a long, long time ago, because it's kind of a thing that's gone around on the internet and in mainstream knowledge for years. It's just like there was a bet on the time that this guy won. He was a flat earther and won. So.
What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Paul Hall, 10th Man, Flatsoid, Brian, Chocolate Sane, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Vietnam.
Buenos dias.
Hey,
Buenos
Vietnam.
dias.
How's it, Joshua?
Oh, that was a very nice warm welcome to this Monday morning live show. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Not from my tangent plane.
Not even the geometry has a curve.
That was
Hello.
Hey, Arwin. Oh, good to have you, Arwin. That was a
To be here.
bit of an in-joke. Say that again, Arwin. Is who here?
No, just said the full panel today. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have a little gap. The weekend shows. Brand new Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show goes out on the Nathan Oakley channel rather than a live show. So pre-records over the weekend. But it means we get a bit of an enthusiastic bump on a Monday morning.
Yep.
So the in-joke that we just had from 10th Man was about tangent planes. So on Friday's show, we had Fight the Flat Earth come. And he was talking about using geodetic surveying methods. And I asked him specifically if they're measuring tangent planes, which they are. And he wouldn't, just dodged the question for about 10 straight minutes. And then later described how when measuring a tangent with their straight line, i.e. assuming the curved surface that they're measuring over, my point in asking him why they're measuring a tangent plane, i.e. begging the question. But yeah, they just dodge and dive around these questions, don't they? Until they accidentally let slip that they're going to be measuring a tangent. What an idiot.
Yeah, plane geometry.
Right. Yeah, they make it. They're constantly derailing their own basic methods because they have to. But yeah, they just get back to their old habits again. You know, once we flat earthers leave them alone by confronting them with actual facts and physics, yeah, then they just fall back to their old habits and just start asserting it all over again, like nothing ever happened.
Yeah,
We don't have a tangent. Oh wait, yeah, we do have a tangent. Oh wait, we're not supposed to say that, right? Oh, there's no flat earthers here. It's okay.
Yeah, can't you just leave us to beg the question in peace, you bloody flat earthers? All we want to do is assume our outcome and then talk nonsense for about 10 minutes, and at the end of it say therefore sphere, which is the thing we assumed at the beginning, but can't you just leave us to it?
Well, they've been getting away with it for years now.
One of their tactics is at the moment is I've heard Tim Osmond speak in the past 24 hours on one of Ranty's hangouts. And he is mentioning terms to deal with geodetic surveying and his supposed observations that are far more geodetic surveying than he was saying before we were speaking about things like Cartesian coordinate systems. So he didn't know anything about any of these things until we started teaching them to people, or not so much teaching them to people, but kind of enlightening people to what they were and showing people what they were. And now he's saying things like, yes, we were doing this thing, and it's just XYZ Cartesian, and he's throwing out these things, and then a few minutes, very shortly afterwards, within kind of 30 seconds, somehow in some way asserting with conviction that it's a globe. You know, this kind of thing. So you have people out there throwing out these terms and then using them within the same paragraph to deal with things being definitely a globe. You know, this is the kind of assassination. They're trying to assassinate the fact that geodetic surveying is not surveying a globe. You know, they're trying to assassinate that fact. You know, so it's pretty pathetic.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Not my watch.
Not on
balloons.
No, on the Earth, not on your watch.
Nice one. I feel strapped now.
Sorry, my watch is digital.
Not on your watches. Earth-based variety.
Not from looking up at the sky from the Earth.
Well,
what about the stars rotating in two different directions?
Earth-based variety. Earth-based, not star-based.
Helium balloons debunk axial rotation.
We'll find out, won't we? So just for the audience's benefit, Flatzoid's going to be launching a helium balloon. I don't know how he's going to stabilise it, but I guess we'll find out. But it should be deviating at 15 degrees an hour, according to the claim that we have a Coriolis effect on Earth, because Earth's turning underneath stuff at 15 degrees an hour. I mean, apparently that's why the sun's moving. No, yeah, but that's not the case now, is it? Oh, dear. Any more on axial rotation? Anybody in Discord? Feel free.
Don't they throw in here angular momentum or conservation momentum, which has nothing to do with Coriolis?
Who, the people in the trenches? Yeah, they're all dumb. They don't understand that you need to be the observer on a non-inertial reference frame to have Coriolis effect. Conservation of momentum's got sod all to do with Coriolis effect, which would be you observing something seem to drift from a spinning reference frame, like a roundabout. You know, you throw the ball's actually travelling straight, but you continue to rotate underneath and it looks like it curves. That's Coriolis. That's what they claim Earth does. I.e., you rotate underneath on a spinning Earth, according to their claim, and stuff carries on in a straight line, like this helium balloon is going to do, right? You only have to leave it in the air and it's going to drift away from you at 15 degrees an hour, right, Flatside?
Correct.
He's spraying.
Let's move on. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope.
Oh.
Although apparently it does kind of look like a fiery ball that seems to spin. It's very confusing.
Well, if you and I
But
together assume that we're circling it, we can probably worship that fiery ball together.
Well, but that's the confusing part, you know, just like the moon. Because I didn't expect this, you know, I looked at the sun and it just kind of looks like this hole through which this incredible light is coming. Doesn't have, to me, doesn't look very spherical at all. The moon, you know, it does. But yeah, that's also very likely to be some kind of a light-based phenomena, hologram, or whatever you're going to call it. But the sun, well, upon closer inspection, apparently it does kind of seem like a weird fiery-like ball that even rotates. Not just rotates perpendicular.
I would agree
Very
with what you
weird.
said before. There was a time when I was looking at the sun through like a couple of panes of glass at a bus stop, and it acted like a pretty good filter. And I'm staring, like I could just stare at it. And what you said before kind of resonated with me. It's like it looks like a big hole that there's light coming out of that's just moving across the sky.
Right.
Doesn't look like a ball, doesn't look like anything physical. It just looks like a big hole that's just moving around the sky. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but that's what it looks like when you look at it.
Right, I totally agree. But apparently, and Paula kind of confirmed this for me, she did the study, that if you go and look at it with a telescope and all the proper filters and really get the detail, then it kind of does look like a weird fiery ball with kind of black edges also. This was an odd little detail.
Well, see, my
There's this suggestion of it being a fiery ball, even though there's no physical proof of that other than the appearance of it. Very weird.
Well, have you seen a fiery, it's an iron ball on top of something cold, how the steam pushes it around?
I can barely hear you. Flatsoid.
Never mind.
He's got his mask on and he's painting and he's asking the question.
Something for the audience. The globe model, it always seems to be the complete opposite in so many ways from reality. You know, we experience flat and motionless, but we're told we're on a curved and rotating, right? All these, and it seems everything to do with it is the opposite. Now, they say through the use of spectroscopy, because they can't say spectroscopy, they don't know what it is, right? They'll tell you that that the sun is made of hydrogen, right? Now, besides all the other problems with that, the fact it's supposed to be gas in a vacuum, all the rest of it, the problem, the word hydrogen in ancient Greek means the maker of water, because hydrogen is part of water, right? This is what it means in Greek. That's where the word comes from. And the word helium comes from Helios, which is the Greek god of the sun. So in the heliocentric model, hydrogen is connected to the sun, and helium does kind of nothing. This is what they kind of, they don't give any. What does helium do? Just nothing. It just goes up and disappears. That's basically, they don't have anything to go with that. There's no helium cycle, and there's no hydrogen cycle outside of the water, outside of the cycle within water. But if you try and find a gas cycle, there's no evidence there. They're not telling you anything about a gas cycle, and there's no helium gas cycle that I can find any evidence of. But helium is connected to the sun in Greek, and hydrogen is connected to water. Yes, we're told by the heliocentric model that hydrogen is connected to the sun, although I know it is a combustion, but hydrogen is connected to the sun, and helium is just not connected to anything. And the fact that it's a combustion also is begging the question that the sun is a ball of fire or whatever. So it's all backwards. Everything they tell you is backwards.
So that ball of fire that they describe that moves across the sky, talking of inversions, you know, you're moving around it according to them. That thing that you see moving across the sky, you're moving around it, mate.
Oh yeah, that one as well.
But doesn't it appear to move around us because we're supposedly spinning?
Yeah, but that ultimately means we're moving around it. The very model's name is heliocentric, sun at centre.
Oh.
We're moving around it according to their rhetoric.
Moving around it while we're spinning and making it seem to move across the sky. Yet when you leave the ground, it's still moving. Yeah.
And the name heliocentric. Helio is from Helios. Helium is named after Helios. So once again, helium does nothing in their model. But yet, heliocentric model is their model.
So you're saying it should be, so you're saying it should be hydrogen centric rather than heliocentric.
Yeah, the hydrocentric model.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because the story is not making any sense. Because the fact that hydrogen is a combustant, and they say the sun is made of hydrogen, that adds to the whole ball of fire thing for them.
Well, hold on. That's not entirely true, though, because the ball of fire may seem like a ball of fire according to the official story, but there's actually a fusion reaction going on. And helium supposedly is exactly the stuff that is used for that. And not hydrogen.
Yeah.
There is hydrogen because that comes out of the fusion process. So, yeah. Don't forget, the fiery ball is not actually a fiery ball. It's a giant perpetual nuclear explosion or something, blah, blah, blah. Remember?
So all this wants to come through a vacuum.
Yeah. But the thing about what Arwen is saying is like, yeah, there is something in that. But they haven't proven any of that. They've only shown some of this happening within reactors here on Earth. When you look for any natural helium cycle or hydrogen gas cycle, not the hydrogen within the water cycle, the only hydrogen cycle you'll get would be basically more or less almost the same as the hydrological cycle. So, you know, they don't ever connect helium to the sun. You know, maybe theoretical physicists do, well, whatever data they can get from whatever they can do in reactors. But that's still only kind of begging the question, isn't it? They don't know. How do they know what happens there?
Well, they did send a satellite past it, and it scooped up a little helium, and they did a carbon dating, blah blah, or something in that direction on it, and then concluded exactly how the sun all has to work. So yeah.
Where was that satellite operating?
I stand corrected.
Oh, hold on. Where was that satellite operating?
It was probably installed on a plane, and they just called it a satellite.
You didn't go high enough. Where was that satellite again? Where?
My bad. Where'd you say that satellite was again, Owen?
It was very close to the sun. So it must have been a holographic satellite.
You just whenever Owen gets challenged with
getting close to the sun.
Whenever Owen gets challenged with baller questions based on his baller description in his baller rhetoric, which he's just detailing as not devil's advocate, but just matter of fact, this is what they say. But when it comes to a challenge, he'll start replying with flat Earth answers. Have you noticed that? Well, it could be a hologrammatical sun, right? Okay.
No satellite. If the sun is holographic, which it probably is, in opposition to physical, then yeah, if you want to get close to it, and this is theoretically, then yeah, a holographic thing could seem to get closer to another holographic thing. That would be easier probably to achieve than in a physical object actually getting closer to a holographic thing, which is impossible. But anyways, it's getting a bit farcical now.
I've actually popped up Bible literalist.
No distance to the sun.
I've popped up Bible literalist sun video, so this is what's playing out now. Put it on 1.5 speed, so I'll leave it to play throughout the duration of the housekeeping. I've also put it in the chat, so if you want to go and subscribe today to Paula's channel, that's Bible Literalist, and check it out. Be here or be sphere on Bible Literalist channel. Link in the live chat. Moving on. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Well, it depends what your dV is, and could it stay your dV? Because it starts off with distance, I hear. Then it moves to redshift, and then eventually gravity is, I don't know, it's very confusing.
Dude, don't make it so complicated. It's very simple. Gravity is the proof for the force of gravity. Come on.
That's
Can
it.
something have more than one cause?
You can have complex systems, yes. So you can have, if you describe something like plant growth, right? You're not going to describe a single cause, are you? But you'd individually identify individual causes, and you can build up a theory of plant growth based on scientific experimentation. So, you know, saying that you've gone have a single cause is specific. The reason we would challenge people on that is because when they have multiple causes in an experiment. So for the sake of argument, going back to exampling Fight the Flat Earth from Friday, you know, his example was to say, yes, I've got scientific evidence of gravity. If distance, then redshift. Oh, by the way, I've got a fundamentalist religious presupposition that if distance, that also means gravity. So you point out that no, you're varying distance, not gravity, therefore you can't assert it as the cause. So then you have a substitution of if distance, then variation in the force of gravitational attraction, i.e. changing the dependent variable in this claim non-experiment. The old switcheroo for the dependent variable. And then you have a switcheroo from varying distance to actually varying gravity. So you change, or Craig change, the independent variable. In other words, they will substitute in and out of whatever they claim, which is normally a non-experiment, to claim they've got scientific validity for a non-force force that you can think of as a force, but it's not actually a force. You know, that's what they do.
And all this that's not even observed.
But it's not a force.
Exactly.
That emergent force.
Yeah,
Emergent force, yeah.
Craig couldn't put out a complete hypothesis, so instead he put out a hypothesis.
Well, if you're to assert that if gravity, then you've got to be able to vary and manipulate it. The same when he begged the question of a turning Earth. And the same principle applies. If the Earth is turning, and you're going to claim that's a hypothesis, which he did, well then you're going to be able to vary that which you're assuming is the cause of an effect. Now, I didn't let him get that far. There's no point. Once you've begged the question, you're just going to get stamped all over by me. So, you know, if Earth's spinning, well, why are you assuming your outcome? That's a begging the question fallacy. I'm not going to let them formulate the full-on if P then Q, Q therefore P. Why should I let them turn it into a formal logical fallacy, affirming the consequent, when they've already begged the question? Because you can't claim it's a hypothesis. If Earth's turning, oh, you're going to vary that, are you? You're going to vary Earth turning? No, you've just got to presuppose it. It's just a begging the question fallacy.
Exactly, Nathan. I mean, just as you say, you can have like something like plant growth will have more than one cause, but you can't have more than one independent variable in your hypothesis, in your experiment. You can't have more than one independent variable, but you can have more than one cause for something. And to say that if Earth is turning, then this means that this is true is nonsense, because if you're trying to prove Earth is turning, or if you were going to find out that Earth was turning, you would see an effect that would drive you to find out the cause of that effect. And you know, the cause of the effect might be because Earth is turning, but we don't see any effects that lead to that conclusion. Like, we don't see, if we were seeing things apparently deviating in the sky, then we could say, okay, there might be what is causing that? What could be happening that would cause things to apparently deviate in the sky? And that could be that the Earth is moving. But we don't see that. We don't see anything to lead us to the conclusion that the Earth is moving.
It's not a phenomena unless it's an observed phenomena. So first you've got to start by observing things seeming to drift at 15 degrees an hour, and then try and figure out the cause. Now, are you going to be able to scientifically validate the Earth turning? No, because you can't vary it. It's just got to be assumed. And the way they'll assume it is saying, as we've had star rotation detailed, if the Earth is turning, then I will observe, for the sake of argument, star rotation in the North and South Hemisphere. I do observe star rotation in the North and South Hemisphere, therefore Earth is turning. Well, if you're going to assert that, you've got to beg the question that you're travelling to a different hemisphere to make that assertion, i.e. assume the Earth's a sphere, and you've got to assume that the turning, the 15 degree an hour deviation that you're going to be observing, is caused because Earth's turning underneath you. Now, you're not going to be able to verify that scientifically, but you can just assume it and formulate it into a fallacy. And that's precisely what they do. Beg the question, formulate a fallacy.
You're just affirming the consequence.
That's what they did.
Yeah, they don't understand that you can't scientifically prove that the Earth is turning because you can't, as a cause of something, because you can't vary it. They keep on saying they have this scientific proof of this. You can't scientifically prove it because you can't vary Earth turning, even if it was turning.
Right. So all they're left with is hypothesis.
Wait, the same guys that tell us that science doesn't prove things anymore. Right.
You know what hypothesis?
But they'll tell us we have scientific proof that we're moving. Right.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
This is what he didn't want to be. He didn't want to answer this question. Fight the flat Earth.
Okay, you're simply just waving over the hypothesis thing. So what is a hypothesis? Well, what does a hippo do? It sits in a river. It just asserts whatever it's like to assert. And then when you get too close to them, yeah, they might look very cute, but then they immediately rush you and go all at home. That's a hypothesis.
Anyway, Dr. Becky, we're still waiting for her.
Sorry, could I just say one thing before you move on, Nathan?
I was just going to ask 10th if there was any update on Dr. Becky, but go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, sorry. No, you walked ahead. No, I thought you moved on to the next one. I thought this.
We will. I haven't forgotten you, by the way, Brian.
No worries.
Maybe not. Any evidence the R value? Earth radius?
That would be a no.
No.
Black Swan.
How does Euclidean geometry work at R anyway?
Yeah, they just assume it.
Well, maybe if no straight lines exist, then maybe an R has to exist.
No, you're going to need a tangent. That's what their model's based on, Arwin. So, unlucky for them.
Yeah, but if you couldn't measure it through geometry, does that mean that it's impossible to establish?
Well, they've just got to assume that they're measuring a tangent, which is a straight line, to a curved surface.
This is starting to piss me off. How'd they get away with this so long?
Get away with it? People brainwash themselves, Neil. We just talked about this in the pre-show, right? We'll get to this. This is on point for Brian. Just hold that thought. We'll get to the end of the housekeeping shortly. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
P waves and S waves.
Beautiful.
The moon. No.
Molten iron core, P waves and S waves. No, they got it wrong when they drilled 8 miles down, and they didn't predict correctly what was in their path. So no, P waves and S waves. No.
But have they updated their scanning technique since then? Have they actually adapted the models to their findings with that?
Models?
Well, maybe their predictions of
models,
about
right?
7 miles was wrong, but maybe their predictions of about 4,000 miles is right. You know, you never know.
Hey, I've been
So it gets exponentially worse over distance. That much is known. But since they did test it based on models of prediction models of what's supposed to be down there based on the scans, did they even try to adapt their models of scan results to what they found afterward, or did they just leave it be?
I don't think they did, because that would require them to then go and verify it again and drill another 8-mile hole. And no.
Well, hey, I was given evidence of a molten iron core on Friday. They were able to melt salt, and it created a current. So with salt creating a current, that's the proof of a molten iron core. So that was the evidence I was given on Friday.
Is it salted caramel? Caramel core.
If we have a molten iron core, then salt will melt and create a current.
Salted caramel
melts, creates a current, and therefore we have a molten iron core. Copy that.
Yeah, salted caramel core.
I just had a salted caramel. That's great, man.
Okay.
Yeah, now I got to get another one.
So that concludes the housekeeping.
How deep? Hang on. How deep did you go to buy that?
To my boss's office. He's got them sitting in a jar.
You just stole them.
So not 8 miles then.
It seems that if we didn't if we the geologists and astrophysicists are the biggest begging the question people that there is in the world of science, because the astrophysicists deal with space and geologists deal with the ground, and none of them can prove anything they say. Yet they'll come out in droves to attack anybody that says anything about them being wrong.
Yeah, you got to protect your interests if you're a pseudoscientist and you're just making up stories, calling them hypotheses, but actually just not validating anything scientifically. They may even observe a few phenomena here and there, but yeah, they're going to attack that vehemently. We said this on the Friday show, actually. That's why we've got not a deluge, but certainly a noticeable number of PhDs coming to the table to defend their rhetoric and nonsense, and their ability to tell the general public what's what as scientists, right?
Yeah, I've had it out with 2 PhDs in the past month. One was a guy who was a retired PhD. I think he's from Pittsburgh, and he's a retired astrophysicist. And another lady called Sabine Hossenfelder, who's online, and she's a PhD astrophysicist. And both of them were attacking flat Earth, and I just started putting them straight. I didn't get any responses off of Sabine Hossenfelder, but I've had a full several video responses and email responses with this other guy. But it's the same old nonsense where you better believe what I'm saying, and you better with this one guy, it was you better bow down to my authority. It was that kind of a thing, And when that wasn't happening, it was ad hoc.
You can forget about Sabina responding. I posted a remark on that Flat Earth video she made, and I said, I'd like for you to answer these questions, because she was citing the Flat Earth Society right from the get-go, right? Something we don't agree with at all. Shill. And all I got were trolls the whole weekend. I said, no, this is, I want to talk to Sabina, not you. And you can just see the trolls coming in. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the troll. She will allow the trolls to defend her rubbish. Sorry, Neil.
I'm saying she probably Googled flat Earth, and you're not going to get any good stuff like you got 5 years ago. You're going to get the Flat Earth Society. So that's probably what she did, and she went from there.
Yeah, I made an hour and a half video response to her, and I did say that I said, look, it is not a direct attack on you personally, but it was an attack on her research. Her research and her claims. Because her research is very poor. If that's the best she could do, because she even got some of that stuff wrong historically.
I see. But they don't have to do a great job. It doesn't matter if they misrepresent us. And even if the us that they're misrepresenting in this case isn't us, it's the Flat Earth Society. It doesn't matter. Who's going to critique them? Us. Oh, right, yeah, we're going to be the voice that's heard. No, the voice of the 20 million trolls in the comment sections. And by trolls, I mean people who are there for their confirmation bias that flat Earth is silly.
Yeah, they're going to defend us. And she won't have to do it.
Well, one of the questions that the trolls were talking about was Coriolis. And so I cited Neil deGrasse Tyson's football field goal kill. And I said, well, if the Earth is turning underneath the football, it's got to be turning underneath drones, airplanes, helicopters, etc. And on and on and on they go. And he brings in, well, how about all the snipers that have to account for it? And I respond, I go, look, I have a gun range. I have an Army Ranger sniper who shoots here. And he never accounted for it. And he took really long distance shots. And I've been shooting for a long time. I never account for it. And so then his thing was, yeah, but you're shooting a short distance when actually I've shot long distance as well. And all you do is divide the feet per second of the bullet to supposed rotation of the Earth where you are on their made-up latitude and longitude. It doesn't work, because even if it did, then it would have to turn underneath anything in the air, such as an airplane, and it would shorten the flights. And
Precisely. I was just about to say, maybe take a different tact, because if someone was to assert to me, oh, right, well, what about the snipers? They're accounting for a 15-degree deviation as Earth is claimed to turn underneath the bullet. I would, with a wry smile, say, oh, so you accept that to have this effect, Earth is rotating under the bullet at 15 degrees an hour? So when I would do it, I'd use the Foucault pendulum or the gyroscope. Get them to concede that what you need is 15 degrees an hour deviation. But if they want to example the bullet, no worries. So you're asserting the bullet is drifting at 15 degrees an hour because Earth's rotating underneath. So Earth's rotating underneath, and as I look at an aeroplane, it's drifting at 15 degrees an hour. Absolutely identical effect, my friend. But we don't notice that in a plane with a massive hang time, or a bullet that's got a very short hang time with Earth turning underneath it. Well, we'd see that in a plane. So you use that to tie them to their claim, which is something they try and obfuscate away from. Oh, well, no, we wouldn't see 15 degrees an hour in the plane. It's conserving momentum. Well, what the hell's that got to do with my observation you're claiming I'll see a 15 degrees an hour deviation? That's got to be me observing the plane drifting. Not it not drifting because it's conserving something. According to you, I watched the bullet drift. Not really drift, it's going straight. I'm turning underneath. Well, if I'm turning underneath a bullet, I'm turning underneath a plane, and a helicopter, and a drone, and a hot air balloon, and anything else that's not attached to a claim to be spinning Earth. The only problem being, the only things that are ever actually asserted to have this drift are things that are in the air for half a second, like a football and a bullet. But that, by nature of the claim, necessitates anything not attached to have a 15 degrees an hour deviation, like an aeroplane. And as 10th Man's pointed out, that would shorten the flight times when travelling west. Because Earth's turning underneath the aeroplane, no one's experiencing that. Debunking the claim that Earth's turning underneath to give you a 15 degrees an hour deviation. You don't see it, even though it's claimed to be in bullets.
Nathan, I actually got a question for the whole panel.
Go.
Have any one of you ever played golf before?
Yes.
And in that 10 seconds that the ball is in the air, has the Earth moved 4,600 meters away from the ball?
It should, if there's a 15 degrees an hour deviation. It doesn't, although generally speaking, they can go in a curved path.
Because 460 meters a second is quite a lot. And I mean, if a ball can stay in the air for 10 seconds, I think you realize you're hitting a ball out of the golf course.
It depends.
Does the ball stay up there?
It depends if you have a wicked slice, then you're causing your deviation and you're really mad.
No, he's right. You can cause the, no, he's right. You can cause the ball. Hold on. Let's get clarity. The curved path described by 10th Man when you slice a ball, and you get it right, the ball takes an actual curved path. Now that is not Coriolis. A description of Coriolis would be you seeing a ball. Doesn't have to be travelling straight. It can be doing whatever you like. But what you observe of the ball is a deviation that isn't actually occurring. You're observing something that isn't real. It's just you turning underneath. Likewise, if you're looking at a lamppost concreted into the ground from a roundabout, the drift you see in the lamppost isn't real drift. So it's the not real drift that described in Coriolis. And if you're watching a ball seem to take a curved path, because you're claimed to turn underneath it on a spinning earth, then that's a not actual curve. Whereas if you slice the ball perfectly and it takes a nice curved path, it's an actual curved path. Not a not actual deflection, not an apparent deviation, which is what Coriolis is.
But the golfers who do a slice on purpose are assuming the earth will meet the ball at the right point and be in the fairway.
Yeah, they're not assuming that they're going to have to account for the not actual drift it's taking. Of course not.
Tiger Woods basically disproves the globe. You know what I mean? Another thing Tiger Woods does.
Well, it's anything...
You know what though?
Go on, Brian.
Sorry, I was going to say, just before Flatside said that, because I was going to say that if snipers were taking the rotation of the earth into account, then in general, everybody who uses a rifle and hunts for deer or boar or anything like that at a distance would always be trying to position themselves to shoot a boar or a deer or whatever they're trying to shoot ahead of one that's running east to west, because they'll be running slower. And the boar and the deer would have learned to try their best to always be running west to east because they're moving faster. You know, if that would be, these would be kind of the weird things that would be happening. People who shoot and hunt a lot would be, if they're using rifles at any kind of a distance, would definitely be trying to shoot always at something that's running east to west, because they'd have to be by proxy moving slower.
The only thing the snipers account for is drop because of velocity. Other things are wind, temperature, those things that also affect. So if you got a strong wind from one side, that will affect, and they already have the books on that. But nobody, and I mean nobody, over a good distance aims at where they think the target's going to be, like 50 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet, 100 feet ahead of it and say, oh, I'll shoot here because by the time the bullet gets there, the deer will get there. No one does this crap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it would be a thing. You know, I don't do that myself. No, I know how to shoot, but I'm not into hunting or any of that. But it would be a thing amongst hunters. I mean, I know people who've hunted for years, and I had a good friend of mine who hunted for years, and it's like they never did this. I mean, everyone would be trying to position themselves so they're shooting at a deer or something that's moving east to west. You know, because you want every advantage. You know, but it would be something that would be inherent from back in ancient times, that everyone would be trying to shoot things moving east to west.
Yeah,
but it's not.
What you're essentially saying is, if we had an Earth that was turning underneath as a non-inertial spinning reference frame, and we observed Coriolis drift at 15 degrees an hour for things that were in the inertial reference frame, i.e. not attached to a spinning Earth, then it would be blatantly obvious. It would be a thing, as Brian puts it. You'd have to worry about it, because it would be blatantly bloody obvious, because things would be drifting away from you the second they left the surface of a spinning Earth at 15 degrees an hour. Oh wow, $50 super chat from Retro Bill. Let's see if I can get it on the smaller screen so I can actually read the text size. And then we'll move on to Brian's bit that he wanted to go over before we started the show. So, if Coriolis was real, the coffee I spilled on my crotch the other day would have never reached its painful target. Right, you'd have had a 15 degrees an hour deviation of the coffee as it made its way towards your crotch. You're right. Thanks for the super chat, Retro Bill. Really appreciate it. Okie dokie. Also, Al Junkie says Tiger Woods hit ballers into the flatmosphere. Thank you very much for the super chat, Al Junkie. Really appreciate your support. Right, Brian, you got something that you wanted to cover before we started the live show?
Yeah, it should only take about a couple of minutes at most. I'm just going to share my screen, Nathan, if that's okay with you. I won't be putting on any YouTube videos or anything like that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
ask first. Share screen. Okay, you should be seeing my screen now. Okay, you've all seen this before. I've showed you this before, and I'll show it in a minute. For to give a bit of background to people who are listening, Rumpus is at present, he's about to do the Bedford levels observation again. Now, I don't think he's doing it in the same spot as Samuel Rowbotham and Wallace did it, but he's doing it in a similar spot, I think. But he is doing it soon, in the next 5-6 weeks. So if anyone wants to support him, I'm sure that there is a way to support him there, if anyone feels like doing it. But I heard about him doing this on Jose's, and I asked Jose to ask him from the chat what would happen if he found out that if through his investigation that it was flat, that he couldn't find any curve. And Rumpus's response to me was that if he doesn't have to tip down the camera lens, if he doesn't have to bring down the camera lens onto one of the markers at a distance, if the markers are in a direct horizontal from his camera lens, then, you know, he said he'll jump into the canal, he said, was his response. You know, and that was straight away to me begging the question, because the truth is that over distance, things do change in angular size, and they do naturally dip, especially if you're making a parallel. Now, I contacted Rumpus yesterday, and I had an hour and 45-minute conversation with him. And unfortunately, my internet went off before I got to finish it, but we got through the main parts of it. Now, I contacted him, and I said to him, I said, Rumpus, during the Bedford levels thing, the original one, I said Samuel Rowbotham proved angular size change, and that's how he won the bet. Now, it was strange because as soon as I mentioned Samuel Rowbotham, there was only me and Rumpus on the call. I didn't record it. As far as I know, to the best of my knowledge, Rumpus didn't record it. But straight away, he said that Samuel Rowbotham was a charlatan and a fraudster. Now, we were only talking there a while ago before the show about how he's kind of given himself, what's the words I'm looking for, Nathan, where he was kind of giving himself permission to stay. It's like giving yourself permission to stay believing in the ball. If you keep on telling yourself that somebody who is a famous flat earther or some flat earth person or whatever, if you keep telling yourself that they are or were or whatever a total charlatan, then that means that everything got to do with them has to be wrong. And so I said, I looked past that. I just wanted to get into the detail of the thing, but it was just strange that he said that, because it was only me and him there. Why did he have to support his belief system that much? It didn't seem very logical. But I said, look, I said what Samuel Rowbotham did was that he noticed that things were dropping in the distance, and he said to prove that this wasn't Earth curve, he said that what he would do is he'd line up the crosshairs of his telescope with the first two markers, and he said if the other markers dropped away after that, he'd concede that it's Earth curve. But he said if he can make all the markers line up in a straight line through once he lined up the first two, then that meant that it was flat, and it was an effect of perspective, basically because of parallel, right? Because all the heights were being taken off of the markers were being taken off of the canal, and a canal is water. Water is flat. Now, Rumpus was under the impression that Samuel Rowbotham, basically, what he did is he looked across very low to the water, looked across the water, and he was trying to say it was all flat and it was only all miraged and whatever else. And that Wallace won the bet because he was up high, and he went by going up high above that bit of a bit of refraction that he could prove that it was supposedly curving. Now, I heard the complete opposite, and even Jaron Campanella did a whole thing on it a couple of years ago about what Samuel Rowbotham did. And there's conflicting stories there. But I said, look, Rumpus, I'm going to show you this effect. And I'm going to show it here. I'm just going to take off the sound. Press play on it. And I said, I'm going to show you this effect. This is something that I have shown before, where I make a parallel with the floor here. So now I just showed that I'm using a plumb bob function on an app I have. I'm using iPhone 5, so it's level flat on this side, the side down here at the bottom. So I'm making sure that I'm making a parallel with the floorboard I'm on. So Whether that floorboard is inclining or declining, it doesn't matter, because the center of my lens is inclining or declining at the exact same ratio, let's just say. Now, that's exactly the same thing as taking a heights off of water, because water is flat. So you're taking heights off of water for markers, that means you're making a parallel with the water, okay? So my point to Rumpus was, look, if you're going to go off in a few weeks' time and do this thing, I was basically trying to lend him a hand. I was going to say, not a hand, but kind of say to him, look, if you're going to do this thing, you're going to have to take this into account. Because if you're going to ignore this, then you could go off and do all this stuff. And if you ignore this effect, you can go off and do all this stuff and do your whole observation and then claim globe. And I can show, or someone else can show this exact effect, and all your work would be for nothing. And he didn't know what I was talking about. He had heard about an older version of what I did with wooden blocks that he said was debunked, right? Which wasn't debunked. And I said, look, leave me show you what I'm going to show you. So I started playing this for him after I explained to him why I'm using the plumb bob function, why I have to make a parallel. And I'm showing how I'm moving away here. There's two black lines. There's one above the crosshairs and one higher again. Okay. So just the one above, let's go back slightly. You can see, even if I go back even slightly more, you can see it's a good bit above the crosshairs. Now, as I move it away, right, due to perspective, right, it starts to drop. Now, it's not really dropping. Yeah, I have a laser beam there now. I'm just going to show. This is from this unit I have to the right of me there. It's a laser beam coming out of it. And so I'm showing that laser beam is sticking to this black line at the top. And this other black line was above the crosshairs here. So I showed this to Rumpus, and I showed him how, as I move this back, the laser light appears to drop. It's only appearing to drop. It's not actually losing any height. It's just appearing that way. So as it goes back, it appears to drop. And so did the black lines. They appear to drop. Rumpus hadn't seen this before, and Rumpus admitted, I just pause it there. Rumpus admitted that, yeah, we went through it, and he admitted that it seemed that everything I was showing there was legit. There was no messing around going on, and I was given two proofs of perspective. And he said, yeah, but that's just perspective. And I said, yeah, but I said, what I'm showing here shows that things will drop into distance. So when you're going to do your Bedford levels thing, if things are dropping into distance and you don't take this into account, then this could be the very reason why things are dropping. And I said, because you're going to make a parallel, it's about making a parallel. And he did not understand the parallel aspect. I tried my best to get into his head. He did not want to hear it. He didn't want to talk about it. He said it's silly. He just would not hear any of it. He did not understand why parallel is important. My point being is that because I'm using a hard surface, I have to make, to show this effect on a hard surface, I have to make a parallel with that surface. So consequently, when I'm making to make a parallel with that surface, that surface has to dictate the degree, the angle. So if that surface is inclining or declining, and I use a clinometer on my phone, then my clinometer might show a level, but that level won't match the incline or decline of the hard surface, whether it be a floorboard or a table or whatever. So if I don't allow the hard surface to dictate the parallel, I won't be able to show the effect. So people thought they were debunking this thing I'm showing here because they were using a clinometer and showing that using it when they level their own camera on their own phone with the clinometer app, that what was happening is that things were they weren't getting this effect. Because they weren't getting the effect because they were focusing on the tops of objects, not focusing on the surface they're using. Now, when people are going to do, like when Rumpus is at the canal, he's going to be getting a parallel off of the canal, water of the canal. Now, that is not going to have an incline or decline too much. It's going to be very, very small if it does, because it will have some movement, but there'll be a small decline in it in one direction or the other. But the point is that he's going to be working off a flat surface. And this proves, because I can show it over on a flat surface, this proves that what he's going to do and the measurements he's going to take off the water will be off of a flat surface. Now, there's other claims out there put out by Jesse Kozlowski doing a thing over a lake. He did two different things over a lake where he showed a marker at one side of the lake, and he's using a theodolite at the other side of the lake. And he's saying the two of them are exactly the same height. and how one of the marker at distance appears to have dropped below the crosshairs of the theodolite. And George Netchuk has done something similar over a lake as well, only recently. And then you have claims like you have things like Miles Davis from Traprain Law looking in the distance, seeing a bridge that's at the exact same elevation as him, above sea level, appearing to be higher than a hill in the background that appears to be, or to basically at the same height as a hill in the background. Now, what people are not taking into account, let's just say Miles Davis's observation, is that his height and the height of the bridge and the height of the hill are all taken off of mean sea level. And you have people like Zanuck out there who are talking about how two different airplanes at the same altitude, right? One can be looking at the other, and the one that they're looking at appears lower, right? But that's this effect again. But both those airplanes, their altitude, right? Although their altitude, how they're holding their altitude is from air pressure, but their height is taken off of mean sea level. So they're making a parallel with water. That's what they're doing. When people are taking a measurement of height or altitude, they're making a parallel with water. So water is always flat. So I'm showing this effect happening over flat. Now, I don't know how they're going to get this effect. I don't know, like, how they think they think when they see this happening that that's Earth curve. When things appear to have dropped in the distance, that's Earth curve. So I showed then, after showing this video, I went through the stills here with Rumpus. I'm just going to make this slightly bigger. And I'm going to show everyone something that they hadn't seen about from this before in a second. I went through the stills and I showed I have a red line here coming out of the crosshairs. And as I go down through the stills and I bring in the laser, I put a yellow line at the top of the laser. So I go back on the stills as we take in stills as it goes back, and you can see that the laser dot appears to get closer and closer to the red line. Now I couldn't push it back any further with my hand. And on top of that, I didn't really want to, because the further I go back, the more excuses there can be about how my floor may not be flat and whatever else. It gives the ball side anything they need just to hand wave it away. Because I'm already listening to people trying to say that I didn't calibrate the app beforehand and all the rest of it. And these people are completely ignoring the laser, you know, this kind of thing. So they're just looking for reasons. With anything we do, they look for reasons that anything they can come up with to hand wave it away and not have to deal with it. So what I'm showing here is two independent proofs, maybe three if you include the card reference point at the back, showing that things appear to drop as they over a distance. Now, Rumpus agreed with everything. He went through, he allowed, and he listened, and he spoke with me, and he agreed, yeah, that what I'm showing here is definitely happening, right? But there was two problems. One, he said that I was completely level, that the floorboard and the camera and everything was completely level. And I said, no, they're parallel to each other, but there's no guarantee they're level, and that's why I'm using the plumb line function and not the clinometer function. Because if you make a parallel, you have to make a parallel. And all these people who have all these things, like just like Zanuck, saying there's two airplanes of the same exact altitude and one appears lower to the other when they're looking at each other in a distance. Yeah, because they both have their altitude taken off of sea level. So they're both they're making a parallel with sea level. So that is a natural effect. Things get smaller in the distance and they do appear to drop, right? But the second thing, but he wouldn't accept or talk about the parallel issue. But the second problem was that he said, no matter how far I'd move this back, the red laser dot would never go below the red line here. I said it would. Eventually it would, because, I mean, you're going to have, the further you move that back, the more angular size change is going to happen. So you're going to have more, you're going to have a bigger view, right? So that can't say the same, like that is not going to just get down to that red line and stop. I mean, the further, if I could move that back 20 foot, then that red dot would definitely be down here low where I'm showing my cursor here, if people can see it, would definitely go down below this red line. And he wouldn't agree with this. And that's kind of the point where the call ended up finishing, because I lost my internet. Someone plugged it out on us. But what happened, what the biggest problem was...
Brian? Brian? Oh, we lost you for a second there, Brian.
Oh, sorry, am I back?
Yep, you're back. Loud and clear.
Yeah.
We only lost you
Sorry.
for a couple of seconds, don't worry.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, what I'm showing here is just that the Rumpus was arguing that this red dot would never go below this red line, no matter how far back I would move the piece. And I said to him, my argument was, Rumpus, you're basically trying to say that things will stop changing and which is impossible, right? You're saying horizons don't happen.
Say that all again.
He said,
hold on. You roboted through that. If you could just concisely summarise your argument again, the most important bit, because you roboted when you summarised your argument.
Okay, I will. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Nate, for letting me know. Rumpus was saying that this, no matter how far back I move cardboard here, that red dot would go below the red line I have here coming out from the crosshairs. And I said it would. I said if that didn't happen, I said, Rumpus, that would be like you saying, I'd be like Rumpus saying that angular size change would stop at a certain point. I said that's like saying, denying that there's such a thing as an horizon, because that's what happens with the horizon. Everything shrinks into that point. And he said, no, I'm not saying that, but he said that the red dot would go below the red line, not go below the horizontal of the crosshairs. This is basically what he was saying. So what I have here is I got these two stills. So this is just before I moved it. This is after I moved it back a little bit. But hopefully you can see, I try and come in. You can see the yellow line here is above the crosshairs. It's just underneath of that black line there. And here is a second still when I moved it back. Right now the yellow line is still at the bottom of the black line, but now it's underneath. So I go now above it, underneath it, above it, underneath it. So Rumpus is trying to say that even though this black line here is dropping below the crosshairs, that no matter how far back I bring this, that other black line and this red dot won't. This is what he's trying to say. So he's completely ignoring this, and he's ignoring the fact that, and a lot of, like, ignoring, wouldn't listen to anything to do with the word parallel. He's ignoring that. But I don't understand the logic how this red dot will not go below, and this black line won't go below this crosshairs when this other black line did. Look, there it is, above, below. So that's all. That's the conclusion of it. Hopefully it wasn't that thing. But
that's perfect.
I'm
Perfect.
Share my screen again.
No, that's
Funny
perfect.
thing is, that's the same argument I had with Sly. with Sparkane.
Yeah, I've been having it with Sparkane myself. He was
You're breaking up a bit, Brian. It was Hold on a second, everyone. You're breaking up towards the end of your presentation. We got 99% of it though, so don't worry. But it is going to be my opportunity to round out this live show. So I'll say with that, a huge, massive, enormous thank you first of all to Brian for making that presentation, but of course a massive thank you to all of you in the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream audience. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, this is where we bid you farewell if you are watching live. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Well, they just want to find anything that comes along that gets in their way. They just want to find any reason to hand wave it away. Because if they can ignore it and hand wave it away, that's good enough for them.
Yeah, very true.
Good presentation. You're nice and clear again now, Sod's Law, of course.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. I don't know why that was.
I don't apologise. It's not your fault. But it's just, we got 99% of it. Don't worry. It was just a bit crackly towards the end. But you were summarising what you'd already said, which was the most important bit. But yeah.
Yeah, well, luckily enough in this, I do, well, in a bad way, I go over the same thing 5 or 6 times or 10 times, but
That's good.
At least one of those times people are.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like that. You've got to say what you're going to say, then say what you're saying, then tell people what you've just told them. That's how you've got to do it. And, you know, if you do that a few more times along the way, that's even better still, because it does take drilling into people sometimes.
Yeah, I find with that parallel thing that a lot of people on Flat Outside don't even know about it, and those that have heard it may not have really understood it. It's one of those things. It's so simple that people complicate it or think it's complicated, but it's actually really simple. And it's so simple it's even hard to explain because it's so simple. It's the paradox.
Yeah, things aren't falling towards the horizon if you're describing them the way they do in the globe mathematics, because their whole world is turned side on, so you can just draw a straight line from left to right and call that your, let me get it right, astronomical horizon. You know, it's just a tangent point that they're going to presuppose is pointing towards the centre of an Earth, and as you look out at 90 degrees, assuming your zenith is towards the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, then you've got this 90 degrees line. And because stuff's falling away from that 90-degree point, it's going around Earth curve, right? Well, no! If you're sat next to let's say you're in a carriage of a train, and your train is parked up next to another train going in the opposite direction at the station. So as you look at the person across from you, they're basically, as you call it, parallel, if you use common vernacular. Now, once you leave the station, you travel along, and as you're travelling along, you notice in the distance, because you can now looking over vast fields, another set of train tracks with a train on it. Well, are you looking at the top? Like, do you have to look and crick your head up to look at the top of that train? No, you don't, because it's far away in the distance and has dropped towards the horizon. Now, does that mean the train's smaller than your train? No, of course not. It's not actual size, its apparent size has got smaller, in angular size, towards the horizon. So that train in the distance that you can see out your window, you don't have to lift your head up to look at the top of the windows or the top of the roof of the train like you did when you were looking at one that was parked right next to you, because it drops towards the horizon. Well, they call that drop, when ignoring all aspects of perspective, Earth curve. In other words, they've hijacked perspective.
Yeah, actually, even yesterday, I forgot to put into not that it matters, but yesterday, Rumpus has some diagrams that he's put together about perspective, and his diagrams were pretty much on point. But he explained how angular size change works, and he went through all the rigmarole. Then he went back to saying it's our curve. They give you a detailed rundown of what angular size change is, and then completely ignore it when it comes back to their belief.
Trying out his new bait and switch on you. So his old bait and switch was talk educatedly about atmospheric conditions, and then at some point substitute out that suitcase with all the accurate information about how things appear in our general view to 7/6R in orthographic view without perspective, nothing to do with anything we see any of. That's what he'll substitute in. So it's his bait and switch. So now he's got to figure out a new bait and switch. How can I talk educatedly about perspective and then engineer in my geometric mathematics that exclude it without anybody noticing? I've got to figure out this bait and switch quick, because they're all talking about perspective and we don't have it. We've got geometry.
Exactly.
I've been thinking about this for a while. When we think about perspective, we all think it's merging with the horizon, right?
Breaking up, Paul. Breaking up.
What? Hold on, I'll come back.
Yeah, they've got to get a new bait and switch. So the old bait and switch is we talk educatedly about how things in the atmosphere behave, how things that you view behave. But I'm going to actually talk about geometric 7/6R Earth curve terrestrial refraction, which has nothing to do with any of those things. So now I've got to talk about optical effects, and then at some point change that suitcase out for geometry. Hopefully nobody will notice. You back,
Yeah,
Paul?
exactly.
You back, Paul?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, that's
okay.
better.
Something I've been thinking about for a while, but I didn't know how to prove it. And I wonder if Brian's kind of on how to prove it. We always think, we always say, flat earthers have said that the horizon rises to eye level. But what if that isn't necessarily true? You know, and perspective is the key component to that because, you know, you're going higher. Yes. Go ahead.
Well, it doesn't rise to eye level. I actually made a video about this some years ago, Paul, and I have it on private at the moment, not on public. But I had it on public for a good couple of years, and nobody really saw it. But it doesn't. If you're standing on a cliff, and that cliff is 100 foot, and your horizon, if you're looking at the water below it, let's say, the ocean, you're technically 100 foot above your horizon, because your horizon is going to be on the water. Now, what happens is that even from an airplane, you look out the window of an airplane, especially if you're over somewhere like Nevada or California or somewhere where you have somewhere where there isn't a whole lot of cloud and there's a lot of sunshine to see a good distance, you'll see a far, long way. And what will happen is the ground or water will appear to stretch out into the distance. But if you were to actually try and find from your exact eye level to that exact horizon, there will be a small amount of drop, but that drop will be in direct correlation to your height above mean sea level. They can never ever show you drop going below mean sea level, unless there's some kind of from low down there's some kind of sinking maybe going on or something. But they can never show consistent drop below mean sea level. All they can ever show a drop to is to the horizon at mean sea level, basically.
Precisely.
So, yes.
And that's
Yeah.
where in those
Sorry,
the
Nick, you wanna say
contradiction,
something?
isn't it? That's where the biggest glaring contradiction lies, because that is precisely their claim, that there's 8 inches per mile drop from the observer, with you on the top of the ball, you with your zenith to the centre of Earth. There's nothing but drop in every direction, but there isn't any. Therein lies the death. You know, they need drop, they need Earth curve, they haven't got any, it only exists in maths.
Exactly.
So really,
I mean, just to clear up before you say that, Paul. The original statement was, and this is how I heard it originally from Eric Debay back in 2015, was the horizon always appears to rise eye level, but appears is the word, and everyone stopped using the word appears and shortened it up out of laziness and said the horizon rises to eye level, but it doesn't. It only appears that way. Sorry, go on, Paul.
No, well, if that's the case, that's what I'm saying is because I've been thinking about that because even like Xanax showing his, you know, moon under her level of the just display, but if the horizon, even though it's still flat, is still dropping no matter what, it's still it would disprove the globe. But at the same time, the other thing is what they need to do is start showing curvature left, right, not angular drop, because that's where the proof would really truly lie. Of course, they run around the circle on that saying it's a hula hoop, but any ball I've ever picked up, if I put it in the right angle, I can see curvature left to right, you know, and that's where the ultimate proof needs to lie, even with a globe, is left to right curvature, not angular drop, you know, whatever you call it.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're out in the ocean and all you can see is water, then there should be no reason why you should not be. If you should be able to see drop in all directions. Left to right is harder to view, but because of our size and the size of the world, it would be harder to view even if it was a globe. But it should still be there from a high enough altitude.
Hold on. But for both of you, right, you've got to get specific. You're saying it. Right, what's it? What are we talking about here? Because you're a step ahead in begging the question fallacy. So what's it? Either Brian. What are we talking about?
It's Earth curve. Earth curve.
What's Earth curve? It's the first housekeeping question. What's Earth curve specifically?
It's mathematics.
It's the physical geometrics.
The leading edge of the physical sphere.
Correct. It's the horizon. The physical horizon in their reification of a globe. Physical horizon. So when you say it should curve from left to right, what's it? Well, their idea that the horizon's physical and a sphere edge. That's what when you say it should bend from left to right. It should be a thing, as Brian puts it. If we were on a sphere, that would also be patently obvious.
Yeah, you're correct. I was incorrect. Yeah, I wasn't being precise.
It's just it's like the critical bit. It's the geometric, physical, sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve. It's the thing they say blocks boats and buildings. Well, what's the boat and building behind? Well, it's behind the horizon. The physical obstruction of an Earth curve edge, we say, is getting in the way of these boats or buildings. That's what you're saying is supposed to curve from left to right, and it's even calculable in their maths. How much it should curve from left to right with its physical nature, its earthy curve edge nature. Because that's what we're talking about, right? The physical geometric sphere edge horizon. Earth curve. It's your horizon, fundies. It just ain't physical. We debunked it with the black swan.
Well, here's the thing, Nathan. Like, there's landmarks that you can see out in the water, and you can see the distance. If it's a known distance between the two, Earth curve calculator should be able to pop out and know how much that is arcing. You should know.
It does.
Shit today,
Hold on, let me correct him. It does. Go to the advanced tab in Metabunk's Earth curve calculations, and you'll find exactly that.
So if it's measurable and seeable in the calculations, then you should be able to measure it on the side view.
Yeah, and they say you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very long distance that you'd have to acquire it, but they do claim that. They claim the horizon's a physical sphere edge, Paul. So they do claim that, yeah. Left to right, yeah. It's in the advanced tab of the Earth curve calculator. Not in all of them.
If I have a bad connection, I'm just going to listen. Go ahead.
Hey, Nathan.
Yes.
Are we done with this one? I want to talk about the sniper if we're done with this subject.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Go to Master B if you would, and there's 4 slides. This is from a site called SOFREP, Military Grade Content. It's the tagline for it. And it's about a 1.14 mile sniper shot. What did it take? Question mark. Tell me when you got the first picture of the guy with the rifle.
Looking good.
Okay, great. So here's the guy with the picture, and then he says, with the amount of work our snipers are getting done downrange, the public interest in snipers and what they do are increasing as the whatever GWOT stands for goes on. I figured I would give the loadout room team a chance to see what goes on in the mind of a sniper to make a shot at extremely long ranges. And he puts 1.14 miles to be exact. Now, of course, I'll post the link to the article after I'm done, but he talks about the rifle, the ammo, the scope, and then he jumps to the environmentals, where it's temperature, altitude, density, altitude, wind, distance, and then the next slide that I put up for you is called Coriolis. Do you see that?
Yep, looking good.
Okay, so under Coriolis, this is what he writes. In some of the sniper movies that I've seen, snipers adjust for something called Coriolis. In the sniper community, Coriolis is used to determine how far our target will move away from the intended aiming point. Remember what he said there. I'll read it again. Coriolis is used to determine how far our target will move away from the intended aiming point due to the Earth's rotation. So far, so good. This was something that I did not get that. This is something that I did not take into account because the flight time of the bullet was only 3.8 seconds. Now, if you would go to the very next slide, and I'm going to get there myself, 3.8 seconds is what he says. Now, at 860 miles per hour, which is where I am in California, basically, the Earth should be moving. 860 miles per hour converted into feet per second is 1,261 point, all those threes. If you go to the next one that I have, it's at the equator at 1,039 miles per hour. That would be converted to 1,520.8 and 66667 feet per second. Now, all you got to do is the math, because he said on that slide, if you can go back to the one on Coriolis, Tell me when you're there.
Yeah, yeah.
I gotta get there. Okay. Let me get back to that. Sorry, God. I'm on the. Here we are. In some of the sniper movies that I've seen, snipers adjust for something called Coriolis. In the sniper community, Coriolis is used to determine how far our target will move away from the intended aiming point due to Earth's rotation. So we got Earth's rotation at 860 miles per hour. It's moving 1,261 feet per second. And at 1,039 miles per hour at the equator, if the shot was being taken there, it's moving 1,523 feet per second. Well, just do the math. He said the bullet stayed in the air for 3.8 seconds. So when I shoot from California, that 1.14 mile shot, the bullet has 4,790 feet. I got to aim east. If I'm shooting, if the Earth is moving west to east, I got to aim east 4,793 feet for that footage in 3.8 seconds. And it gets worse at the equator. It's almost a mile, if not over a mile. It's 5,790 feet in that 3.8 seconds. The Earth would have to rotate like he said. Are these people stupid?
Yeah. If Earth's rotating underneath a bullet, or anything else for that matter, that's a thing. Right, Brian? A thing you've got to deal with.
See, they're talking about vertical drop and calling it Coriolis and effective wind on a given day that might make you adjust by 2 or 3 or 4 feet over a certain distance. But if you're going to tell me Coriolis is because, as he says, the Earth is rotating, then you've got to aim 5,790 feet away from your target and wait for the Earth to bring it there? This is asinine.
Yeah, Earth's not rotating under this bullet. It's nonsense. It's absurd. And if it was rotating under the bullet, it'd be rotating under anything else that's leaving the claim to be spinning reference frame. And if that's a plane travelling west, it's going to shorten its flight time, and that simply doesn't happen.
True, and my point is even more embarrassing for all the ballers who've ever come on the show and speak rubbish that something with a longer hang time, like an airplane or a drone or a helicopter, wouldn't see it, but it works on a bullet. And I just showed you how insane it is for a bullet.
Well, if that was happening, if the Earth was rotating, sorry.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead. Or maybe he was getting interrupted.
So no, I was coughing. I didn't want to cough onto the show. If the Earth was rotating, then it would be a thing, and we would travel across, let's say, from country to country in a completely different manner. We would use our latitude first. Let's just say if I wanted to go to, I don't know, let's just say I want to go to down to California. I would be using my latitude. I would be hovering above the Earth until the correct place came along. Then I would go down. Then I would use longitude in some way to go down further towards Southern California, if you know what I mean. So I would leave the Earth spin underneath me till I get to where at my latitude. Then I would get off there.
No, you can't.
And then I would,
hold on. Get off what? Get off the inertial reference frame. The only way you can get off the inertial reference frame is to get on the spinning non-inertial. So to do what you're doing, the only adaptation I would make is if you're on an assumed spinning reference frame, non-inertial globe Earth, then to achieve your target, if the Earth's rotating underneath so that the people can observe this claimed 15 degrees an hour deviation from the ground, then you would have to decide how much you're going to go down towards California and just calculate the speed that you travel down the longitude line so that as you arrive, you've got the Earth turn bringing the continent, or in this case California, to you as you've traversed downwards on the presupposed sphere Earth surface. So you can't just get to the destination on the latitude line and then say, well, I'm just going to choose to ignore the fact that Earth's still going to be rotating underneath when I try and attempt to go downwards on this ball. You know, you've got to do it all at once, haven't you?
Well, what I was saying is that we would have to have a lot of interconnecting situations, and there wouldn't be airplanes. Everything would happen through, let's say, balloons or something like that.
Yeah.
We would go up. We'd
And you'd have people
rotate on any of this. We go down. Then we'd have to go forward or backwards on a longitude line to get to another latitude. Then we'd get on that for a while. You know, if I was going to go from Southern Ireland to Southern California, that's going to be over and down.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you got to do them both at the same time if Earth's turning underneath, right? So what you could have potentially is, you know, your guy in your Irish guy in the balloon, no aspersions, but let's just say he's drunk, right? And he miscalculates how much he's going to drop on his longitude line, right? And he miscalculates it. He lands and goes, "I'm really sorry. We're going to have to put on a bus service to get you onto the inertial reference frame so that we're not having the problem of it spinning underneath us in the air anymore because I've missed it." Right? So we've got a temporary bus service that's going on the ground to get you back to your destination. Because obviously what's he going to do? Fight Earth turn, get back in the air and go to where he's missed? No, he's not going to fight that 800-mile-an-hour Earth turn, is he?
No, I mean, as a travel experience, it'd be more like being on the underground in London or the subway in New York, wouldn't it?
But the announcements over the tannoy would be very different. We are very sorry to announce that we will have to put on a temporary bus service due to the Coriolis effect. Our apologies.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be, because you're going to have to be, because if you fall asleep and sleep past your destination, you know what I mean? You're going to have to get a different, you're going to have to find some other way to get back to where you were. You're going to have to back around again, you know?
Exactly. And to do so, you've got to be back attached to the claim to be spinning reference frame, so that you're not having any adverse effects of it turning underneath you while you're in the air. So it's like, we've got to get you back on the ground. We've got to do the rest of this by bus. Can't do it by air, because obviously we'd have the Earth turning underneath us at 800 miles an hour. That's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to have a kind of a situation where the whole sky would be a load of balloons that just work with the Earth curve. They work with the rotation of a curved Earth, where you just follow around west to east. You just hang above till where you want to have to get off comes to you. Then you get off at that point, and then you have longitude ones that go up and down the longitude. They actually are powered. So they actually go up and down the longitude, but you might want to go to the next latitude and then go along again on that latitude, then go down again and go maybe this is bizarre.
Or just forget the balloons altogether and just buy a really big pogo stick.
Yeah.
You had me going there, Nathan. You should do a nice, with your British accent, you should do a nice British Airways commercial for London to New York. Oh, sorry, passengers, we missed New York due to Coriolis. But don't worry, the Earth is spinning at such and such a rate. Just hang in there. We got enough fuel. We'll get it on the second try.
Yeah, we'll do a go around, an Earth go around.
That's good. And we got plenty of snacks. Don't worry.
You know when you might see a drunk person on the trains in London or New York or Sydney or somewhere, and they're on the train and they have no idea. They know what stop they're supposed to get off at, but they have no idea where they are. They're that drunk. Well, that would happen too. There'd be people going around the Earth in circles because they're so drunk they wouldn't know where to get off. They'd be getting off in China when they're supposed to get off in Holland. Do you know what I mean? That would be a thing. You know.
So Brian, are you saying to observe Earth-based Coriolis, one has to get drunk?
No, you'll have to speak for the people, the Dutch and the Irish, but we don't have drunks on our trains.
Yeah, there's no drunks as right on the London Underground.
Absolutely not.
Oh my, this was fun.
But it is a true thing. If we were on a globe shape and we were rotating, both those things, there'd be so many things different in our world that would be a thing. You know, there would be so many things that would be different. There'd be no avoiding it. There'd be no argument. It wouldn't be something to argue about. It'd be ridiculous. You wouldn't even.
I couldn't agree with you more, Brian. This is the thing, right? Once you start looking at it from the outside in, so you're not part of the defense mechanisms that are put up by our opponents in terms of the heliocentric religion. If, like you and I, you just look back on it and go, if we're on a globe, right, given the fact that they're ignoring perspective and just calling it Earth curve, if we were on that ball, we'd still have perspective. And the Earth curve they assert, coupled with the things dropping into the distance with perspective, would give you this mad effect of everything falling away from you. Not only that, you've got a claimed Earth turning underneath you if you jump up and down in the air. Well, that would create quite a few very obvious things going on. Now, the fact that they're asserted and then defended with double speak when it comes to Coriolis, so it's deviating the ball, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson. You're watching it drift, but it's not really Earth's turning underneath the ball, and that's why the goal was scored. And then you go, well, hold on, the plane should be drifting then, and so should the helicopter, and we should have these crazy mad flights arranged to compensate for Earth turning underneath all these things, so that we see them drift according to you. But we don't see any of that. But that's what we would see, so we never harp on about that. We debunk their claim by saying, well, we would actually have the claim of 15 degrees an hour, and we do, but we'd see it. We'd actually see 15 degrees an hour as Earth turns underneath stuff. But we don't have that. But if we did, and this is the bit we should maybe harp on about more, because it's much more ludicrous, if we did, things would be drifting away from us at 15 degrees an hour all over the place as we watch things in the distance curve away. You know, we don't see any of that. You know, it's only asserted through mathematics and debate, as opposed to, well, I say that's here, in the general realm of the media that people get as normies. They're just told. Well, you're told it's a sphere, right? It's not anything that's debatable. You're just told that's how it is. Also, just remember to ridicule the flat earthers if they ever say otherwise.
Yeah.
That's how the field goal was made. Can we get that right?
What was made?
It's not, when Neil deGrasse Tyson explains that, you have to say that's how the field goal was made, not the goal scored.
Made? You
Thank
make a
you.
field goal?
Yes, and it's 3 points.
Yeah, I don't care about the construction of the goal itself. It's about the scoring of the actual point. That's what I'm talking about. You're construction workers and your construction worrying about the points of the goal itself. We're not talking about making it. We're talking about scoring it. I'm only joking, Neil. I know what you mean. He made the field goal because Earth was claimed to turn underneath the ball.
Yes,
so from the
there
stands,
you go.
the stands,
You got it.
it seemed like the goal was made because the ball curved through the goal. Now, in reality, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, Earth turned underneath the ball. Now, if it turns under the ball, it turns under the helicopter and the plane. And we'd have to have this elaborate system of balloons and drunk Irish pilots potentially missing your target.
Have any been watching or listening to Brandon Toy's videos on Coriolis?
I love Brandon Toy. Yeah, Brandon Toy's ace. Yes.
Yeah, Brandon is good. He's been getting independent information from George Netchuk, Blue Marble Science, and Bob the Science Guy on the Coriolis, because they all have pilot's licenses. It's so ridiculous. Their stories are so bizarre and ridiculous. It shows they don't know what Coriolis is in the first place. And secondly, their stories are so bizarre and ridiculous that it borders on, I don't know how to describe it. It borders on craziness, because Bob the Science Guy tried to say that when he's driving on the road, let's say he's on the highway, that he has to keep his car slightly left. He has to have a slight left pull on his steering wheel, basically, to deal with Coriolis.
What?
That's
Canva. That's Canva. They put Canva on the road.
Maybe you should have a steering system.
Hold on. That's Canva.
No way.
That's to help the roll off of the rain.
Yeah, it's because of the camber of the road. Yeah, I said in the comment, they say it's right hand side on our, here in Britain and Australia, and that's right hand side.
If your car is perfectly tracked and you just travel on your average road, it will have a canvas so that the rain rolls off it. Well, that will, if you interpret it that way, it could be perceived as you having to slightly correct in the opposite direction to keep the car perfectly straight. Well, that's nothing to do with Coriolis effect, because Coriolis effect is if you observe something no longer in the reference frame that you're on and rotating. Not anything that's happening while you rotate or as you drive a car. It'd be something you watch that's not attached to the reference frame that's spinning. So he doesn't understand Coriolis at the most basic level.
No, I've even heard George Netchuk say similar, and the both of them have said the same thing. Now, George Netchuk, I don't think, said the thing about holding it to the left a little bit, but he did. They both said that, and Blue Marble Scientist said something similar, maybe as well. But that if let's just say I'm driving to meet Blue Marble Science, who's off to the left of me, that I'm going to be correcting subconsciously to meet up with Blue Marble Science, right? Right.
Okay.
And the same thing happens in airplanes.
Hold on, man. Hold on.
And the same thing is happening with airplanes. That they just hold a track. It's like driving on a road, and they just only correct as they need to correct to get to where they want to go.
I see. So
and that's how. So
Brian, so they're correcting for actual deviation on the road. So they're having to correct because it's drifting one way. That's not Coriolis. Coriolis is an observation of not actual deflection. So, Bob the science guy, if you think that correcting for something has anything to do with Coriolis, then you're a moron and don't understand that Coriolis is detailing a not actual drift. So you're correcting for an actual camber in the road, moron.
Yeah,
so basically this moron is saying if it's raining, he's going to have to somehow correct for Coriolis in his car.
What an idiot.
Morons.
It's worse than that.
It's worse than that because he does it subconsciously.
Do you want to know the motivation? The motivation for doing this is because they need their effect when they're detailing non-Coriolis, in this case conservation of momentum or the correction for a deviation in a road camber. But nevertheless, what they're doing is they're assuming that you've got a turning reference frame. So therefore, when their presupposed Earth is turning, they need to account for this or that or the other, whilst assuming that they've got an example of something that's got a turning reference frame. But they need the turning reference frame to not demonstrate any drift. So they need Earth and atmosphere travelling as one, because we don't experience 15 degrees an hour drift. So what they're going to do is justify why we don't see any drift. Have Earth and atmosphere assumed to be turning and turning together. That's one reference frame. So they need to detail their examples in a single reference frame that's just assumed to be turning, because then they can detail any effect that they like within that single reference frame. But Coriolis, on the other hand, is the not actual deflection you'll observe because you're turning, and the thing you're observing isn't turning with you. So it's an observational based effect, not an actual deviation that you need to correct with your car. But they do that so that they can then later beg the question of a single reference frame with Earth turning as a presupposition. That's why they do it. So it's not just like, well, what's this madness? Don't they get it? Yeah, they get it. But at some point, they're going to be begging the question of an Earth that turns with atmosphere turning with it to justify why the planes aren't drifting.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to say, like Bob the science guy, Blue Marble Science, and George Netchuk are basically trying to say that driving a car, you're basically what they were trying to state originally, I thought, is that flying an airplane is like driving a car. You hold your track, and that you head in your direction, and you let's say you change to left or right or whatever as you need to do it, right? Like you would in a car, and you wouldn't think a whole lot about it. And that is correcting for Coriolis. This is what they're trying to say. But then they have to get because Brandon is sitting.
Stop. Hold on. Okay? No. You don't correct for not actual drift. That's nonsense.
I know.
So when they say that's me correcting for, you can't correct for Coriolis, because what Coriolis is you observing something not actually drifting. So in the plane, what's occurring to have Coriolis? Well, I'm observing the plane seem to drift because I'm turning underneath it according to the claim of a spinning Earth. Now, I don't ever see this actually happen. We don't observe planes seem to drift because we're turning underneath them. But what's he going to do in the plane? Excuse me, passengers. According to my radar, there's a man watching us seem to drift. So I'm just going to correct for this, because the guy on the ground is watching us seem to drift. You don't correct for not actual drift. So if George Netanyahu is telling you about how he's correcting for Coriolis in a plane, then he's a moron. He's literally retarded. I hope someone passes this on to George Netanyahu. Well, tell him how retarded he is. Because he thinks that observing not actual drift needs correcting for. What a retard.
He's been corrected on this a number of times. Him and Blue Marble, you numpty dipshit, you. And Bob, the pseudoscience fallacy guy, you guys got special wings on my toe tag on the playlist. You guys are abject idiots. I say, sir.
Yeah, they need a single reference frame for their
And
non-Coriolis.
they're not getting it.
They're not
Get
getting
them on
it.
in here.
And
Get them
two
on in
of
here.
those guys have science in their name.
Bring No Marbles in here. He's in the server. Come on in here, No Marbles. Friggin' hillbilly blue balls, the redneck retard, aka the photosynthetic redneck. Come on in here and get your ass whooping.
Hey,
bring
chocolate,
idiot.
Since they got science, since they got science in their name, they also say science doesn't prove things. So what are they saying about themselves?
Exactly.
The irony. Just out of interest, is he actually in the Discord chat?
No, he's not in the Discord chat, but he's in the server. No Marbles. Photosynthetic redneck, come on in here and get your ass whooping like every one of you guys. Because, well, I think he knows he's retarded. That's the problem with him.
They will never come in here.
Who in the world shows up to disprove gas pressure without a container with two fucking containers? Who does that?
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!